to South Dakota. This U.S. state is really quite underrated as a travel destination. It's an excellent place for road trips, especially with so many great attractions close together. From the stunning landscapes to the rich history, most of the destinations featured in this video are from the western part of the state, centered around the Black Hills, or Paha Sapa as the Native Americans call it.
You'll notice a recurring theme when traveling through South Dakota. A tale of two histories, of the Native Americans and of the early pioneers. A tenuous relationship with attempts to live harmoniously, broken treaties, and violent clashes. Rarely seeing eye to eye, and both sides believing they were the good guys. When exploring the incredible sights of South Dakota, you'll feel these intertwined stories not as some distant history, but as the ever-evolving story of this land.
Hi, we're Jake and Emily, the two roaming souls. We're experienced travelers who make helpful guides about the world's best destinations. So let's get into our top 10 things to do in South Dakota.
Badlands National Park. The Badlands are one of our favorite geological wonders in the U.S. From endless prairies emerges a surreal landscape of colors and shapes, with layers that tell a story of erosion over millions of years. And the park is also notable for the abundant fossil beds and wildlife. It's very common to see bison, bighorn sheep, pronghorns, prairie dogs, and more. The easiest way to experience the park is to take a scenic drive through the maze of Badlands, stopping at a variety of viewpoints and pull-offs that draw your attention. Our favorite stop is Yellow Mounds, a name that really undersells it. There's just so much color here. And there are lots of handicap-accessible boardwalks and short trails to get out and stretch your legs. A couple of the short must-dos are the Window Trail and Door Trail, or go a little bit deeper on a longer hike, like Notch Trail or Castle Trail. I should note, weather at the Badlands can be pretty unforgiving. Brutally hot in the summer and without any shade to speak of, and whipping cold in the winter. So hiking is best done in the spring or fall, or at least going around sunrise or sunset, which is definitely something I recommend experiencing in the park. The Pinnacles Overlook is our favorite. A 7-day pass to the park is $30 per car, or just $80 for an annual National Parks Pass.
Wall Drug. If you are going to visit the Badlands, then there's a good chance you'll be passing through Wall, South Dakota. And Wall Drug is a must-visit tourist trap, which I know is kind of weird to say, but it's just such an iconic location that everyone should experience at least once. What started as a humble drugstore in a sleepy prairie town has grown into an institution. It used to be the simple promise of free ice water and 5-cent coffee that drew in weary pioneers, both of which they still have. But now there's dozens of shops, a restaurant, old western memorabilia, jackalopes, and all kinds of odd things. Our favorite thing to stop for are the donuts. They're so yummy. And if you can see past the tacky t-shirts and cheap souvenirs, unless that's what you're into, Wall Drug still does have some things worth exploring. My favorite part is their collection of western artwork and historical photographs that are certifiably museum-worthy. It's easy to miss the backyard because it seems like it's just for kids. But ironically, it's where most of the historical photos are displayed. It really makes you marvel at a time when Native Americans were forced to reckon with the presence of these new settlers.
Custer State Park. Our favorite place in all of South Dakota is Custer State Park. It features dramatic rock formations that are just spectacular to see. Simply driving through the park on the Needles Scenic Drive is a must-do activity. The road itself is a feat of engineering, carving its way through pointy rock spires, domes, and fins. And there are even a couple narrow tunnels through the rocks, so be aware that nothing larger than the width of a regular pickup or van will fit. One of the most scenic spots in the park is Sylvan Lake. Great for picnicking, paddling, rock jumping, fishing, or just enjoying the scenery. No motorized boats are allowed on the lake, but they rent canoes and paddleboards if you don't have your own. The other best thing to do in the park is go for a hike. We highly recommend checking out the Cathedral Spires Trail, a moderate 1.7-mile hike. And if you want something a little longer and more challenging, add on the summit of Little Devil's Tower or Black Elk Peak. Entrance to the park costs $25 per vehicle for 7 days.
Mount Rushmore. This is probably the most famous South Dakota attraction. You can marvel at this sculpture and learn about how it was carved into the side of a mountain between 1927 and 1941. It honors 4 United States presidents: George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln. But why choose these 4 presidents? This question might prompt you to learn a little more about these 4 men and their vital contributions to our nation during some of the most critical moments. Something odd to note is that there is no admission charge, but instead you have to pay $10 per vehicle for parking at Mount Rushmore, even with a National Parks Pass. While Mount Rushmore is certainly an impressive feat and no less created with good intentions, its mere existence is a controversial irony to the Native Americans.
Crazy Horse Monument. While Mount Rushmore reminds us of one side of history, less than 10 miles away, an even more ambitious and controversial sculpture honoring Native American history is underway. Lakota elder Chief Standing Bear commissioned Polish sculptor Korzak Zolkowski to build the monument. My fellow chiefs and I would like the white man to know the red man has great heroes also. The statue is of Oglala Lakota warrior Crazy Horse, a Native American hero who took up arms against the US government after endless broken treaties. When completed, it will likely be the second largest sculpture in the world, standing 563 feet tall, nearly 10 times the size of Mount Rushmore. But the story of this controversial statue is nothing short of fascinating. Zolkowski began in 1947 working alone, and you'd sure believe that, since here we are 79 years later, and still only the face and one hand of the statue are completed. Obviously, still decades away from completion. Several years will go by without much apparent progress. Excuses range from bad weather and the rock itself, to simply that so much of the work is just removing material and not the finer details that make headlines. But a 1/34th scale model allows visitors to see the ideal finished product. But considering that rock instability forced Mount Rushmore to settle for just faces when they initially planned for complete torsos, I would not be surprised if this monument also comes up short of its original vision. Admission costs between $7 to $35, depending on the vehicle type, number of people, and the time of year. So why even show up to look at a work in progress? Well, the site educates visitors with the Indian Museum of North America, the Native American Educational and Cultural Center, and also live performances. And their grand vision is to continue growing the campus of Indian University of North America, which over the last 11 years has enrolled over 400 students from 70 Native nations, providing unique college credit opportunities through its summer scholarship programs. The Crazy Horse Memorial operates as a nonprofit, several times turning down any kind of federal funding or assistance. And after Korzak's death in 1982, the work has been carried on by his wife and children. Some argue that the Korzak family involvement and the focus on the carving process itself takes too much focus away from the original intended purpose. And despite putting the nonprofit front and center, some aspects like the gift shop are operated by Korzak Heritage Inc., a for-profit family company that pays royalties to the memorial. And the memorial takes in tens of millions of dollars per year. And for perspective, Mount Rushmore only cost $1 million and took 14 years to complete. And even among Native Americans, there's disagreement about whether the monument is a triumph or an embarrassment. Crazy Horse himself was famously against having his picture taken and asked to be buried in an unmarked grave. But even if we did know what he looked like, blasting away sacred land on such a grand scale seems to contradict everything Crazy Horse was fighting for.
Jewel Cave National Monument. The porous limestone bedrock of the Black Hills is perfect for the formation of caves, and the most impressive cave in the area is Jewel Cave. It's really a network of caves with over 220 miles of known and mapped passageways. But airflow studies suggest that only 3 to 5% of the cave has been explored, which is just mind-blowing. Access to the above-ground parts of the monument are free. But to experience the Jewel Cave itself, you need to book a paid guided tour, and it's recommended to book in advance, especially during summer. They offer several different tour types, but the one we would recommend most is the Scenic Tour for $16 per adult. This 1 hour and 20-minute tour takes you through about a half mile of passages and rooms in the cave network. You will be just in awe learning about the history of cave explorers that continues to this day, forever pushing farther and farther into never-before-seen passageways. To an average person, it just seems like the craziest hobby, but the mystery of this uncharted underground world will certainly leave an impression on you. The variety of crystals and rock formations seem almost otherworldly. In our modern world of straight lines and square construction, the cave network is anything but. Another popular cave just 21 miles away is Wind Cave National Park. They are both very impressive caves, but at the recommendation of some locals, we went to Jewel Cave. But worth noting is that Wind Cave National Park has more going on above ground and is an excellent place to see wildlife. And for what it's worth, a clever young girl on our tour asked the guide, "How do we know that Wind Cave and Jewel Cave aren't actually just one giant connected cave?" To which she answered, "We don't."
Spearfish Canyon Scenic Byway. At the north end of the Black Hills, you can find this spectacular scenic drive. Beginning right at the edge of Spearfish, South Dakota, the Spearfish Canyon Scenic Byway snakes about 18 miles through rugged mountains. If you're starting in Spearfish, here are some of the best stops in order. First is the Community Caves, a steep and rugged half-mile hike up to a cave-like overhang with a waterfall that flows seasonally.
Okay, we had to regroup. Didn't realize the river crossing was so substantial, and it worries me to have like a real camera. So we got some sandals and hiking poles. Now we go.
Trekking poles were very helpful for coming back down the loose rock. If you're not fit and adventurous, I would skip this one. And there's no signage for this hike, so be prepared for the pull-off just after mile marker 13. The first must stop in the canyon is Bridal Veil Falls. It's a quick pit stop with a viewing deck right next to the road. You can cross the river to get closer to the falls, but it's not strictly necessary. Next up is Devil's Bathtub, a wild 1.6-mile river hike to a natural water slide and swimming hole. It was definitely my favorite spot in the canyon, and definitely the busiest stop in the whole canyon. But I could tell that a lot of people definitely didn't know what they were getting themselves into with this hike. With one river crossing, then another, and eventually turns to just practically walking in the river. The sooner you accept that your feet will just be wet the whole time, the easier it gets. Again, trekking poles or a walking stick are very helpful for all the river crossings. As for the natural water slide, use it at your own risk. It was quite fun, so I went 3 times, but my hip did get banged up pretty good. And a notable landmark at the trailhead for Devil's Bathtub is the Homestake Hydro Plant No. 2, a retired hydroelectric plant that used to serve power for the nearby Homestake mine. The last big attractions in the canyon are Spearfish Falls and Rough Lock Falls, both located near each other in Savoy. The trailhead parking for both of these falls is located just past the Spearfish Canyon Lodge. And there's also the Larch String restaurant if you're feeling a little hungry. Spearfish Falls Trail is 0.7 miles and begins just to the left of the restaurant, and Rough Lock Falls Trail is 1.8 miles. Something worth noting is that there were no public trash bins anywhere in the canyon, and the only bathrooms we encountered were at the trailheads for Spearfish Falls and Rough Lock Falls, so plan accordingly.
Deadwood, South Dakota. Perhaps nowhere in South Dakota embodies the Wild West spirit and mining history like Deadwood. Full of historic buildings, old-timey saloons, casinos, and daily historical reenactments. With many iconic Wild West figures like Wild Bill, Calamity Jane, Potato Creek Johnny, and more. But this town is certainly milking its history for every last cent of tourist dollars. Far too many casinos, t-shirt shops, and historical embellishments. And yet, for all the tacky and over-commercialized fluff, there's some actual history behind it worth uncovering. Here are the best historical sites in town to check out. The Mount Moriah Cemetery, perched on the hill above town, is where Wild Bill and Calamity Jane are buried. It's a steep half-mile walk up from town, or you can drive up as well. And at the edge of the cemetery is an awesome overlook of town. The Adams Museum is an excellent small museum, with exhibits about Deadwood's history and other quirky historical pieces it's acquired over the past century. The Adams House is a well-preserved historical mansion that you can tour. And the Deadwood Public Library is a still-functioning Carnegie Library with many books about South Dakota history, from Native Americans to the Gold Rush era to ghost stories and more. On Main Street, they host free daily historical reenactments, and the actors are great. And the No. 10 Saloon, they have a reenactment of the murder of Wild Bill Hickok, and the actor who plays him is just perfect.
I needed work, so I took off looking for work. I headed west.
Brothel Museum doesn't shy away from telling the story of how prostitution was a very real part of Deadwood history, which actually even continued up to the 1980s. So if you can look past the tackier side of Deadwood, it's still a really interesting and entertaining place to visit.
Hot Springs Mammoth Site. This place is simply one of the greatest paleontological sites ever discovered. A sinkhole that became the final resting place of at least 61 mammoths during the Pleistocene era, around 150,000 years ago. It's believed that animals came to this unsuspecting pond for a drink, but would get trapped by the slippery rim and thick sediments, basically creating a mass grave. While woolly mammoths are more commonly what we call them, you'll also learn about Columbian mammoths, which were actually even larger, reaching 13 feet tall at the shoulders, and make up most of the mammoths found in this sinkhole. And what makes this place extra special is that it's not really just a museum, but an active excavation site, where you're actually seeing the remains right where they were found. And it's just mind-blowing to see how many well-preserved skeletons exist in such a small area, with plenty more suspected below what is currently visible. Mammoths are definitely the headlining species of the site, but tons of other animal remains have been found in the sinkhole as well, like bones from the extinct short-faced bear, which was even larger than modern-day polar bears. And there's also some exhibits on paleontology, learning activities for kids, and a snack shack and gift shop. We were both stunned to learn about an extinct species, the giant ground sloth, which was about the size of modern-day Asian elephants. Also, I don't know if it's just to help with preservation, but it was so cold in the site, so bring a jacket.
Sturgis, South Dakota. This is practically the biker epicenter of the nation. Every August, the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally brings 10 days of bike shows, charity rides, concerts, and more. The rally draws thousands of riders and motorcycle enthusiasts that transform this small town into a full-blown party. But if you visit any other time of year, the town is mostly pretty quiet. And don't miss the Motorcycle Museum. To see everything from vintage motorcycles to race bikes and custom bikes that are dazzling works of art. Sturgis is most known for its legendary biker bars and saloons, and none more famous than the Full Throttle Saloon, a couple miles outside of town. This behemoth of a biker bar is practically like a full-blown festival grounds, and definitely still worth checking out, even if no special events are going on.
Thanks for coming along on another Two Roaming Souls adventure. Check out some of our other top destination videos here, and we'll catch you on the next one.